Thank you very much. So I'm going to represent a whole piece of research by the Energy Revolution Research Consortium. And one small part of that has been the work that we have done to look at the value of public investment to help to achieve the net zero localities ambitions that we know most of our local areas have. We know, for instance, that around 3/4 of our local authorities have signed up to climate emergency statements where they are committed to achieving 100% clean energy and low carbon infrastructure, sometimes within extremely tight timescales. We also know that very often, and in most instances, they have limited capacity to make those declarations material. Now, this short piece of research, and I realize I didn't put the link to it, so I'll just post that into the chat. The link to the report is there in the chat. That smaller piece of research really built on a bigger piece of work which we did across the whole of the local authority sector in the UK, looking at ambition and investment in systems, showing that there are some real pioneers out there, as we've already said. They are working extremely hard and very effectively to bring together various forms of local energy systems, particularly around, I would say, heat, power and storage, the areas where local authorities have the knowledge and have the commitment to make a significant difference, and which are often the most difficult areas for central governments to create progress in. So next slide, please. So what we try to do here, in particular in this report, and I'm just going to give one brief example, which I hope makes the overall point. In the report, we try to give a whole load of examples of where relatively small investments of public funding have led to very significant wholesale growth in local energy systems. Now, one of the really perhaps more dramatic examples of that is where local authorities in the UK have been willing to make use of technical assistance funding. I'm using the ELENA, the European Local Energy Assistance Programme example here, just to show the type of grants that were raised from that ELENA programme by UK local authorities and what happened in terms of the outcomes. So we saw through the ELENA programme £23 million worth of UK grants invested in building a local energy team. And we heard, I think it was Cheryl, among others, say, look, this is a discretionary area for local authorities. They don't have to do this. So there is no inherent inbuilt capacity. There's no statutory requirement for local authorities to work on local energy systems. But where there is a will, there is usually a way. And of course, those technical assistance funds are central to developing the will as well as the way to do it. So where we saw those £23 million of grants, sorry, euros, we've used the euro one in this case, coming in to UK local authorities, building capacity through a local energy team, we know that every euro resulted in about 37 euros in investment, delivering, and that's up on that picture there, around £859 million worth of low carbon investment at local scale. And if you, one of the arguments we make is, in a very simple piece of arithmetic, if we scale that up across every local authority in Britain, in the UK, we've got 408 local authorities. If we put £1 million of public investment into those 408 authorities, then we would look to deliver at that scale of a 1:37 ratio, 15 billion in local energy investment. Now that's a very modest public sum, public funding to deliver huge societal benefit for localities, for jobs, for regeneration, as well as for our net zero carbon ambitions. Next slide, please. So if we had that kind of scaling up of capacity, and of course it could be done in various ways, there's lots of options for doing that, but nevertheless, quite modest public ambition leading to major developments. What do we need inside local authorities, working with their partners externally and across the sectors to get there? Well, initially, and we see this now in the pioneering authorities that we already have, the lead age authorities, they all have a problem owner. That often is associated with getting money through that sort of regional funding to develop the technical as well as the economic and the project management capacities, pulling all of those together around perhaps an energy and carbon committee and a senior officer. As I've already indicated, I think a ring-fenced budget is very valuable there because it protects this as an area of priority. Political commitment behind that, of course, is critical, combined with the kind of community action that we've seen represented from both Neil and Barbara in the two PFER demonstrators. Officers, again, we see this in all of the research that we've done, the facts don't speak for themselves. We might have lots of really lovely reports showing the value of local energy systems, but actually those don't simply translate into immediate justification for action. Instead, what you need are officers locally on the ground who are willing to do the advocacy, willing to do that work of explaining the synergies, the value, the combined value of local energy for people's jobs in the area, for local spending, discretionary spending, for regeneration of areas where new industries and businesses can develop, but above all, perhaps for health and welfare locally. We saw, for example, in the instance of Aberdeen Heat and Power, what we see where Aberdeen Council got behind district energy systems, heat and power, to invest locally. What they saw was a much better response from their lowest income households in terms of health and welfare, including demands for, yes, more local energy systems, please, because it's affordable, it gives us a better life, it gives us self-respect. Now, of course, that also relies on having a finance director who can be brought on board and willing to think in terms of integrating energy into those local capital investment programs, making it part and parcel of everyday activity of the council. And that means being willing to use those investment funds to develop the necessary expertise over the longer term, as we've seen in some of the conversation today. That's critical, not to have to rely on project by project. So where do I think, and where does our research suggest that the needs for toolkits are? Well, we know that there are already some valuable metrics, and I know that the team at the Systems Catapult is working to integrate all of those into this toolkit. Really what's needed is something to streamline all of that work, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel each time an initiative starts at local scale. But instead, there's a really easy way into this to streamline, to make it flexible, to make it agile, in that popular term of the moment. Ideally, one of the things that local authority officers always say to us is they need metrics, they need measures to show the local added value, the GVA, if you like, of investing in local energy, just in the same way that other sectors have their gross value added metrics. This is a new one. We need to be able to show that we can evaluate public expenditure and show the real value added using those net zero criteria. And that way we can make much more systematic progress. Thank you.